Hi Marco, thank you very much for, where's the camera? Your personalised video response to me. I just took this guitar, this Jammy, out into the street to go busking. It's the first time in my life that I've ever gone busking and not made any money whatsoever. I think it was because I was just rehearsing really in public. But it gave me a chance to see how all my equipment worked. Now, you said to disconnect these two pieces. You just pull this piece out with one hand, and in your example it stayed there, and I thought that's good, it just stays there. I didn't realize that, and then I could just pull it out or put it back in, but I just realized just then it's not going to stay there while the other piece isn't there, so we're still stuck with the problem here of me having to connect these two pieces and now needing a third hand, because if I let go of that, it's going to fall to the ground and smash. So it's good that I'm sitting down. If I wasn't, it would be very much like this mid-air. I don't know if I can push and force that and let it click. At the moment it feels very slippery, like there's always a danger that it will fall, and now it's like that. Let me just try your way like that. Okay, so while it's connected, alright. There's a bit of resistance there that makes you think it might fall. I guess if you can really get a good grip on that, it is possible to do that. I don't know what your previous button press design, how it failed, but yeah, from my perspective, pressing and holding, if you could make a robust button solution rather than that finger plus grasping fingers plus hand, which is effectively like three hands really. I kind of just want to put it down on something just to make sure it's safe when I do that. When I go to put this thing back in the box that it came in, just so I can put it on the shelf to make sure it's nice and put away, I can't do that while these pegs are in. I've got to disassemble everything just to get that disconnected. This alternative to a lead from Cavave is something that would help sell your Jammy more if that was already a built-in kind of function. This is only 2.4 gigahertz transmitter, RF transmitter, so you could get interference with like garage doors and stuff, but if you could potentially get one where the two things could communicate with RF, not Bluetooth obviously because there's too much lag or latency, whatever you call it, if you could get that to work, then if that was a built-in functionality, then the Jammy would just be going straight through to a single transmitter, potentially single receiver that's plugged into a stereo system, either with a a quarter inch or a 3.5 mil jack that's plugged into the input socket of whatever it is that you want to broadcast through. In my case, I'm using a little 5-volt mixing desk, which I'll now turn up so we can hear. Okay, so as for the settings in the Jammy app, I had done that in a video after the one that you responded to with my brother-in-law who makes guitars, and we adjusted all the mutes, all on the smooth muting and on harsh muting, whatever the two things are called, all the way to zero, zero and both all to max, and there were still problems with right hand mute. And you could just see just then when I just played that string, the lack of sensitivity there. I must have plucked this string out right in front of your eyes about 50 times, and it's only played about 3 or 4 times. It really takes a lot of effort, and the muting is not going to work. And unless I press hard. So that kind of thing made it difficult for me when I was playing the string. The other thing is so that was quite responsive then. I was quite happy with that. When I was wearing the strap, sometimes I would just want to, stop and talk to somebody and then fling the whole thing around and just let it hang there. With the strap, And then I realized, luckily I caught it in time, on this peg here, the strap just wants to fall off. The whole time it just wants to fall off when it's not on this angle to the body. So forget about looking like a rock star and having that thing hanging down over your back like that. The whole thing will just fall off and break. So your strap is ineffective. Yeah, this isn't anything to do with your fault. I just haven't set this correctly to avoid the distortion modes, which I know I can change in my phone. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't expect there to be really an on guitar display here. But given that this is kind of the width of an iPhone almost, it could be potential that you might want to have an iPhone just sort of sitting in it, kind of holder there, so you could just use the app at all times, anytime you want. This back bit here has always had a stiff connection with this section, and today when I went to take it off after I was having a lot of trouble, in the darkness of course, I'm not in a well lit night, it's nighttime in the street, I went to play it and I pushed this thing in with all, it's connected obviously, and it was hard to get in, and then it just sort of, it kept on winding on the spot, and as you can see here, doesn't matter how many times I wind this, that it's unresponsive. So some piece of plastic that was brittle broke off. I even had to get a screwdriver and undo that to get this off the guitar, and then pull the loose piece of plastic there, that little bit there that spins around, out of that hole where it fell off after I'd undone the screwdriver. And it looks as though that plastic, however it was made very brittle. So when you twist it and it doesn't want to go, it forces whatever D-shaped connector or whatever spline type connector you've got going on in there to just give way, because fingers are more powerful than plastic is strong. So that failed. Also, I turned off the guitar before I came back on my motorbike, which is the whole point of this whole system. This plus a jammy guitar gives me everything I need for a live performance in the street, with a microphone stand and an iPad holder and my iPad, which all fit inside a backpack. So I can just go out and start busking. But then the guitar's not totally responsive. Sometimes I'll play quietly with my thumb, as I'm doing now. You can see it's only playing sometimes, you know. There's no sensitivity tweaking in the right fingers as far as I can see. There's only mute sensitivity tweaking. So playing a string gently cannot be increased in terms of its sensitivity. I'm not sure if that's something you can bring out with a new firmware update. Because I noticed when I did when I finally managed to do the firmware update by clearing out the network settings of my phone, so that I could then get the firmware update from my phone and send it into the Wi-Fi network, which I couldn't previously connect to. And so I got the latest firmware update, and it was just, it had more options. So it was an improvement, and I'm thinking, potentially the hardware isn't broken. Potentially this thing doesn't need to be sent back for a refund. I mean, potentially this one is not a dud compared to some of the ones I see examples of you guys playing on your videos, which has been my fear. I've gone inside and I've tightened the strings to a level that I'm quite happy with, but it was a bit of a pain in the ass to get in there and tighten them, especially given that there's no way to even use an electric screwdriver with direct line of sight. You know, just a little weak electric screwdriver, you can't even do that because the whole thing has to angle around a corner to get in. Even if there was a spot that you could get in on an angle, you got bits of hardened metal that would block any kind of direct line of sight, even with a standard sort of Allen key that was long with a handle like that, which would give you more torque with your hands to keep winding it. You've actually got to use the very most awkward possible connector, which is the L-shaped Allen key, put it in, find the hole again, try to lock it in. It's got 6 angles you need to lock it into, and then use the hex to just bit by bit, way too slowly for each string, tighten it that way, which I don't like. And the way that this plastic tightens around, what have you got there, 12 hooks or something on each side, it makes this very difficult to squeeze off when you're removing that, after you've removed those 2 screws there that are stopping this entire piece of plastic from sliding off. The other thing is just trying to handle this thing when you're not playing becomes a sensitivity issue, because often you're trying to keep the guitar muted, just out of force of habit potentially, but also it seems logical that you just keep your fingers over there so it's not so it's muted, but it's still playing its own thing, like it's being hammered on or something right now. I'm just trying to hold it gently, and that kind of noise is going on throughout the entire production, my show or anyone else's show. Like even that, I'm not doing anything. I'm just putting my guitar into position, getting ready to play it, and it's doing all that. I've spoken before about the dots that we need along the top there. If I intend to keep this jammy guitar instead of sending back for a refund, I'll put the dots there, because playing it is impossible, because I can't, that's what I'm seeing, I can't see where anything is, and I'm not super touch sensitive to, okay, my finger feels like it's on the 12th fret or whatever it is now. I need to see what I'm doing. The other thing is, when you've got the strap on, it's not there in the position I want to play it, it's there. That's where it hangs naturally, about there. So I'm trying to strum back there, and now my arm, which is normally wanting to be up here to play guitar, now has to be down here, or I have to keep forcing it. I have to use my elbow to try and hold the thing in position. It's almost like you did no kind of testing to see how that felt with the strap. I don't know why that happened, but that makes it basically unplayable standing up. So I had to busk sitting down today so that I could just put it on my knee and use this ultra sharp, which I've mentioned to you before, switchblade knife, which could easily cut through anything. I could engrave my name onto a brick wall with this thing until the plastic, which is so flimsy that it would break, and that's evidenced by this breaking on basically the 3rd time I've ever put it in. It's already broken. Look, not spinning. So no good. The other thing I really loved about this, in terms of just looking at it like that, could be that could be an awesome instrument on its own with a strap, without the need for these the body attachments. And I would prefer it if I could just have a good enough strap that worked. And I'm not sure how you would do that exactly. Potentially you could have a strap hook, what do you call this, a hook? You could put a strap hook about there, and then the whole thing would be potentially further forced, so long as you don't get in the way of the thumb sliding back and forward. I'm not sure exactly how you'd go about doing that. Somehow the strap would just need to not make the guitar hang like that in the wrong spot. It would just be hanging out there, right? And so long as the dots were there and it was responsive, this would be a very handy guitar. Battery lasted throughout the night. I wasn't having any problems with battery life. I don't like the 5% warning only. Why can't you give me 4 or 5 dots to show me percentages on battery life? Battery life is what everybody's always concerned about with devices these days. How long have I got left on anything? Now, admittedly, a lot of products don't do this, but if I'm able to speak to the people who are making the changes, I definitely think you should do that. Not just 5% warning and that's it. Not good enough. Yeah, so sensitivity is an issue. The last firmware update was better. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and do some tests, and you could help me tweak things, and I could use a different communication device other than this phone, because that's the device that I'll be using to update the jammy specs. See, even I'm not meaning to play that don't. No, it's just being touched somewhere. changed the technology that a gentle brush is going to make it quieter, and then strumming harder makes it louder, like it does on other guitars, semi-acoustics at least. That'd be cool. I'm not sure if you saw the review from my brother-in-law, but you should see what he had to say about it, because he is a very, very fussy guitarist, and he's got heaps of guitars, and he's had many, and he's built some as well. That's all I can think of at the moment. I love the idea of this product, and I won't be able to go busking with my motorbike if I have to carry a big guitar on the back of my motorbike. I would just have to catch a tram or an Uber or something to get there, which would just kill the whole idea of it all, really, to me. But I will do that if I have to. I just need you to make those tweaks, and if these things can't be solved, then the guitar remains unplayable, unpick-upable without making too much noise and stuff. I don't want to have to do that every time I pick the guitar up and move it, and then put it back to that volume level again every time I have to move my guitar from place to place and touch it any time with my fingers, and have those unnecessary noises going off, improper muting, insensitive right-handed strumming. Because you're talking specifically in your video response to me that the muting was something I needed to have addressed, right? I need to adjust that, but it's not just that, it's the playing. No, yes. Muting. Okay, so it's not just muting sensitivity, it's playing sensitivity as well. I could see sensitivities up here on the left hand in your app somewhere, can't remember exactly, but I didn't see any playing sensitivity on the right hand. And if those things were existing, then I could potentially tweak them and get it right, but I wouldn't really want to have to do all that tweaking to make something work. I'd want it to work just like a guitar would. If a guitar was touched like this, would it make any noise? Yes, it would. Therefore, the Jammy has to do it too. Okay? So there's my kind of commentary and responses and questions. And I'm not sure what to do about this little bit, the plastic thing that's broken here. This was sort of like the catalyst for me going, all right, I'm about to put this back in a box now and get ready to start discussing with you, how do I get a refund? Because I don't want you to have to send me one of these bits only, and then the rest of the guitar still doesn't work, and you know what, it's rigmarole. And there's a saying that says, pioneers perish. Don't be the first one to go out and buy the latest of something, because you'll be the guinea pig. And I guess I have been a bit of a guinea pig in this example, right? I really, really, really want this to work. I don't want to have to wait till version 2. I'm just hoping that your app will solve it with firmware updates and give us more sensitivity control over the strings on this side. Thank you.